Reality television has given us plenty of unforgettable women. We had Housewives, Basketball Wives, Love and Hip Hop, Bad Girls Club, and just about every show imaginable. But every now and then a reality show comes along that doesn't feel like television at all. It feels like you're peeking into a world you were never supposed to see. That was Mob Wives. This wasn't about women trying to become influencers. They weren't chasing brand deals or worrying about going viral on TikTok. These women came with real family histories, real grudges, real heartbreak, and real consequences. And whether you loved them or hated them, you watched. Today on Teality Rewind, we're taking one last trip back to Staten Island to celebrate one of reality television's most unforgettable franchises before we officially put it in a reality TV vote. So grab your tea because this one deserves a toast. When Mob Wives premiered on VH1 in 2011, reality television was already exploding. The Real Housewives franchise was dominating Bravo. Jersey Shore had become a cultural phenomenon. Basketball Wives was proving that viewers love watching complicated friendships. So when people first heard about Mob Wives, many assumed it would just be another group of women arguing over petty drama. They couldn't have been more wrong because Mob Wives wasn't built around celebrities. It wasn't built around luxury lifestyles. It wasn't built around women pretending to be connected to organized crime. These women actually lived with the consequences of that life. Some had husbands in prison. Some had fathers who were legendary figures in organized crime. Others were trying to rebuild lives after years of public scrutiny. The cameras didn't introduce the drama. The drama had existed for decades before anyone yelled action. One thing Mob Wives did better than almost every reality show that came after it was authenticity. These women weren't worried about becoming memes. They weren't creating fake catchphrases hoping they'll end up on a t-shirt. If someone had a problem, they stated it. If someone crossed the line, they confronted them. Sometimes politely, but most of the time, not so politely. Arguments didn't feel rehearsed, they felt personal, because they were. These women had known each other, or at least knew of each other for years. Their families crossed paths, their legacies were inherited. Sometimes the conflict wasn't even about something that happened on the show. It was about history. And history has a way of showing up at the worst possible time. Now let's talk about the women who made this franchise legendary. First, there was Renee. Renee wasn't just another cast member, she was the emotional center of the series. The daughter of Anthony Graziano, a reputed mob figure. Renee carried the weight of her family's reputation everywhere she went. She loved hard. She forgave sometimes. She exploded often. Whether she was crying, laughing, screaming, or trying to hold her family together, Renee gave viewers every emotional possible. She never hid who she was, and because of that, viewers connected with her even when they disagreed with her decisions. Then there was Karen Gravano. Karen entered the show carrying one of the biggest names connected to organized crime. As the daughter of Sammy the Bull, she couldn't escape public attention even if she wanted to. Karen returned to Staten Island hoping to repair old friendships. But instead, she walked right back into years of unresolved tension, especially with one woman, and that woman was Drita. And trust me, we'll get to that. Next up was Carla. Carla often played the voice of reason. She wasn't always the loudest person in the room. She wasn't looking for every argument, but don't mistake calm for weak. When Carla finally reached her limit, she wasn't afraid to stand her ground. She balanced the cast in a way people don't always appreciate until they look back. Every reality show needs someone who knows when to speak and when to simply watch everything unfold. And that was Carla. And then there was Drita. Let's be honest. If somebody on Mob Wives wanted to fight, Drita was usually ready. She had one of the strongest personalities on that show. She was fiercely loyal, protective of her family, quick to defend herself, and even quicker if she felt disrespected. Whether you agree with her or not, Drita became one of the most talked about reality stars on television. She wasn't trying to be intimidating. She simply wasn't afraid, and viewers respected that. But then, halfway through the first season, someone walked into our television screens who would change the entire energy of the show. Angela, better known as Big Ange. Big Ange wasn't introduced as the toughest woman. She wasn't the loudest. She wasn't trying to be the star. She was just Big Ange. With the unforgettable laugh, that unmistakable Staten Island accent, that glamorous hair, the oversized personality, and a heart that somehow made every scene feel lighter. When the other women were ready to tear each other apart, Big Ann often became the one trying to calm the room down. She had a way of making people laugh right after they spent 10 minutes laughing at each other or screaming. We could deliver one line and suddenly everyone forget they were angry. That was a gift. And it's one of the reasons fans still talk about her nearly a decade later. But don't let Big Ann's want fool y'all. My Wives wasn't about friendships. It became home to some of the most explosive, unforgettable, and emotional fights reality television has ever seen. And unlike many reality shows, these weren't strangers arguing over a dinner reservation. These women had history, real history. And when that history finally exploded, the entire reality TV world was watching. So let's get into the feuds that turned Mob Wives into must-see television. Let's be honest, Mob Wives didn't become a hit because of the fashion. It didn't become a hit because of luxury homes or fancy vacations. It became a hit because these women brought decades of history with them. Every conversation felt like it had 10 years of backstory. Every disagreement came with receipts, and every apology came with conditions. These weren't friendships built for television. These were relationships that existed long before a camera crew ever showed up. That's what made the show different. You can't manufacture this kind of tension. Karen versus Drita. Now let's talk about the feud that became the heartbeat of Mob Wives. Karen versus Drita. This wasn't just two women who didn't like each other. This was personal. Years before the show, Karen had dated Lee. Later, Drita married Lee. Even though years had passed, those unresolved feelings and differing versions of what happened created a tension that never really disappeared. From the very first season, every conversation between Karen and Drita felt like a power cave. One wrong comment, one sarcastic look, one person bringing up the past, and suddenly everyone was yelling. There were accusations, there were tears, there were threats, and of course, there were fists. Because if you watch Mob Wives, you already know. If Drita took her earrings off, somebody was about to have a very bad day. One thing you can't deny about Drita, she never backed down. It didn't matter who was standing in front of her. She wasn't interested in winning arguments. She wanted respect. And if she felt disrespected, well, she had no problem handling it herself. Over 6 seasons, Drita earned a reputation as one of the toughest women reality television has ever seen. People often compare reality TV stars like Drita, but she's different. Most reality stars today know they're creating moments for social media. Drita wasn't thinking about going viral. She was reacting in real time. Whether you agree with her actions or not, you believe they were genuine. That's why she became an unforgettable part of the franchise. Then there was Renee. If Drita was the muscle, Renee was the heart, and sometimes the storm. Renee wore every emotion on her face. She could be laughing with someone 1 minute and completely devastated the next. Throughout the series, viewers watched her navigate family struggles, broken friendships, betrayal, and her personal healing. She was not perfect, and she was far from it. But that's exactly why so many people rooted for her. She let the audience see the messy parts of her life. There was no filter. No pretending everything was okay. She cried when she was hurting. She admitted when she felt betrayed. And even when viewers didn't agree with her choices, they understood where them emotions was coming from. Now imagine a room full of people yelling at each other, voices getting louder, people standing up, fingers pointing, threats flying. Who could walk in that room and somehow make everybody else smile? Big Ange. She had incredible ability to lower the temperature. She wasn't interested in proving she was the toughest. She already knew who she was. Instead, she cracked a joke, pour a drink, give someone a hug, or simply tell everybody to calm down in her Staten Island voice. And somehow that shit worked. Big Ange reminded viewers that underneath all that fighting, women still shared years of friendship and community. She became the glue that held so many relationships together. Of course, we can't let Mob Wives go without talking about some of the fights, because let's be real, some of these moments have become reality TV history. There were screaming matches that lasted entire episodes, dinner parties that turned into battlefields, family events that ended with security stepping in, people storming out, people stepping back in, and enough flying drinks to keep a cleaning crew employed for the rest of their life. And here's why those scenes still hold up today. The fights weren't entertaining because people were yelling. They mattered because viewers understood the emotional weight behind them. Broken trust, family loyalty, old wounds, new betrayals. Every confrontation had layers. It wasn't just about drama, but for the sake of drama. As the seasons went on, the cast expanded. New personalities entered the picture. Natalie, she arrived with confidence, style, and was absolutely no fear of speaking her mind. Then came Alicia, whose own legal issues added another layer to the show's conversations about family and loyalty. And later, Love entered the franchise with a larger-than-life personality and a reputation that immediately shocked up the dynamic. Each woman brought something different to the table, but their arrivals also shifted the balance of the original cast. Longtime friendships were tested, alliances changed, and viewers began to notice that the chemistry that made the early seasons so special was starting to evolve. Looking back now, it's easy to see that Mob Wives was changing. The friendships weren't what they had been. The arguments felt heavier. The trust between some of these women had been worn down for years of conflict. And while the show was still developing unforgettable television, something was different. Nobody knew at the time, but the franchise was quietly approaching its final chapter. And unfortunately, the biggest heartbreak wasn't going to come from another fight. It was going to come from losing the woman who became the soul of Mob Wives. You know, there's something about rewatching Mob Wives today that hits differently. The first time around, we were focused on the fights, who was right, who was wrong, who was throwing punches, who wasn't speaking to who. But years later, you realize the biggest story wasn't any of those. It was watching these women grow older together, watching friendships change, watching families change, and eventually watching life happen. By the later seasons, Big Ange wasn't just a fan favorite. She was the emotional heartbeat of Mob Wives. She had this incredible ability to make every scene feel lighter. She could walk into the middle of chaos, say one finished sentence, and suddenly everybody was laughing. She wasn't perfect. She had disagreements. She had opinions. But there was never any doubt that she genuinely cared about the people around her. That's why fans connected with her. She reminded people of their favorite aunt. The one who always told it like it was, the one who fed everybody, the one who somehow made every family gathering better. Big Ange wasn't trying to steal the spotlight. The spotlight naturally found her. Then everything changed. In 2015, viewers learned that Big Ange had been diagnosed with throat cancer. At first, there was hope. She underwent treatment. She stayed positive. She continued to smile. She continued filming. But like so many people facing illness, she tried to keep living her life. Fans all over the country were rooting for her. Not because she was a reality star, because she felt like family. You wanted Big Ange to beat this. You really did. Unfortunately, the cancer returned, and this time it was far more aggressive. On February 18, 2016, Big Ange passed away. She was only 55 years old. It's hard to explain to people who didn't watch Mob Wives just how heartbreaking that moment felt. Social media wasn't filled with arguments. People weren't debating storylines. Everyone was simply mourning. Reality TV fans, cast members, celebrities, people who had never met her. Everybody had the same reaction. Not Big Ange. If you ever gone back and watched season 6, it is impossible not to see it differently. You notice the little moments. Her smile. Her laugh. The way everyone lit up when she walked into a room. Knowing what was coming changes everything. Instead of just watching another reality show, you're watching someone's final television moments. And that makes the ending feel incredibly emotional. Around the same time, the franchise itself was changing. The relationships between several cast members had become more strained than ever. Old friendships had fractured, trust had been broken, new cast members had shifted the chemistry. And after 6 seasons, the show wasn't the same. Family viewers had fallen in love with. That's not unusual for long-running reality television. Success brings attention, attention brings pressure, and pressures can change relationships. By the final season, you could feel that some of the women were carrying years of emotional baggage, both on and off the camera. The laughter wasn't coming as easily anymore. Looking back, I think it's fair to ask a question. Was Big Ange the glue holding Mob Wives together? I'm not saying she solved every problem, because she didn't. But she brought balance. She reminded everyone there was life outside the arguments. She could disagree with somebody and still sit down with them later. That quality became harder to find as the seasons went on. When VH1 announced that season 6 would be the final season, many fans weren't surprised. The show had reached a crossroads. The dynamic had changed, the friendships had changed, and after losing Big Ange, it became almost impossible to imagine Mob Wives continuing in the same way. Could the franchise have continued with a completely new cast? Maybe. But would it have still been Mob Wives? I don't think so. Some shows lost ratings. Some shows run out of stories. Mob Wives lost a part of its heart. And sometimes you simply can't replace that. But here's the thing about television. Networks rarely let successful ideas go without trying one more time. Even after Mob Wives ended, there were attempts to keep the magic alive. There was a spinoff. There were familiar faces. There was hope that lightning might strike twice. But as we're about to find out, some franchises only work because of the people who created them. Let's talk about what happened after Mob Wives. When a reality show becomes a hit, networks always ask the same question. How do we keep this going? For Mob Wives, the answer was Mob Wives New Blood. The idea sounded simple enough. Introduce new women with connection to organized crime, mix them with familiar faces, and hope lightning strike twice. But there was one problem. The audience wasn't watching because they wanted mob wives in general. They were watching because they had become invested in these women. By this point, viewers had spent years watching Renee battle addiction and rebuild herself. They had watched Drita fight to protect her family, Karen confront old wounds, Carla search for stability, and Big Ange become the heart of the series. Those relationships couldn't simply be replaced. The new cast members weren't given enough time to build the kind of history that made the original group feel authentic. Instead of feeling like the next chapter, it often felt like an entirely different book. That's the challenge with reality television. You could recreate a concept, you could recreate a format, but you can't recreate chemistry. And that's why New Blood never captured the same cultural impact as the original series. Renee continued appearing on reality television. She became an author and has spoken openly about addiction, recovery, and rebuilding her life. Drita focused on family and business ventures after the series ended, remaining one of the franchise's most recognizable personalities. Karen expanded into books, podcasts, and television while continuing to discuss her family's complicated legacy. Carla chose a more private life after the show while still connecting with long-term fans. Ramona, Natalie, Love, Marissa, and all others pursued different paths as the camera stopped rolling. There are reality TV stars. There are fan favorites. And then there are the rare people who become bigger than the show they became. For Mob Wives, that person was Big Ange. From the moment she walked onto our screens with that unmistakable laugh, her larger-than-life personality, and her even bigger heart, she brought something to the series that couldn't be scripted or manufactured. In a world filled with arguments, betrayals, and decade-old grudges, Big Ange remained solid and reminded everyone, both the cast and the audience, that life was meant to be loved, lived, honored, and have compassion. She wasn't perfect, and she never pretended to be. That's the part of what made her so special. She gave advice without judgment, welcomed people with open arms, and somehow found a way to bring calm to situations that seemed impossible to fix. Even when she was caught in the middle of the drama, she never lost the warmth that made people gravitate towards her. Reality television often rewards the loudest voice in the room. Big Ange proved that sometimes the strongest presence is the one that makes everyone else feel seen. When she passed away in 2016 after a battle with cancer, it wasn't just a heartbreaking loss for her family and friends. It was a loss that fans around the world genuinely felt. For many viewers, it felt like losing someone they had known for years. And in many ways, her passing marked the end of something much bigger than one television show. She reminded us that behind every headline, every argument, and every dramatic moment were real people with real families, real struggles, and real lives. Her legacy isn't measured by how many episodes she appeared in or how many memorable one-liners she gave us. Her legacy is measured by the smile she brought, the comfort she offered, and the reminder that kindness could leave just as lasting an impression as conflict. To Big Ange, thank you for the laughter, the honesty, and the joy you shared with all of us. May you continue to rest in peace, and may your legacy live on through everyone whose lives you touched. Every reality show leaves something behind. Some leave catchphrases, some leave viral moments, some leave controversy, but only a select few leave a legacy. For 6 unforgettable seasons, Mob Wives invited us into a world that most people only knew through movies and headlines. It wasn't simply a story about organized crime or family names. It was a story about women navigating loyalty, love, loss, friendship, motherhood, and the weight of choices made long before the cameras ever arrived. The series wasn't perfect. There were moments when the drama overshadowed the storytelling. There were friendships that fractured beyond repair and conflicts that became painful to watch. But at its best, Mob Wives gave us something that has been increasingly rare in reality television: authentic relationships. These women didn't meet at a casting call. Their history existed long before the first episode aired. And that's what made every celebration, every betrayal, and every reconciliation feel real. More than a decade later, fans are still discussing the cast, revisiting their favorite moments, and introducing new viewers to a show that captured a unique moment in reality television history. That kind of impact can't be manufactured. It has to be earned. So tonight here at Teality Rewind, we honor not just a television series, but a cultural moment. For its unforgettable cast, for the stories that made us laugh, cry, and occasionally yell at our television. For preserving a chapter of reality television that could never truly be recreated. Teality Rewind proudly inducts Mob Wives into the reality TV vault. Its story has been told, its legacy has been cemented, and its place in reality television history is forever secured. I want to thank y'all for joining me on the journey through one of the reality television's most unforgettable franchises. I'm your girl, Betty. This was Teality Rewind. Make sure y'all subscribe, comment, like, and share. And I'll see y'all. Peace.
I don't even play like that. 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 I don't even play like that.